Look, if you're not building muscle, we know what the problem is. Here's why. You guys want to guess?
Why?
We do.
I guess we're clairvoyant.
You're
not lifting.
No. These are going to be obviously.
Your program sucks. Buy ours for
100%.
Is that what the pitch is?
Kind of.
I like it.
Okay, so when you think of all the reasons why people are not building muscle, all the times you guys had a client come to you, hire you, and their challenge was, I'm working out. I'm doing what I'm. Obviously, if you're not lifting weights, that's why you're not building muscle. But they are working out. They're coming to you, and they're like, it's not working. What is happening? What are the most common reasons why?
Common for if someone has reached the point where they're reaching out to me, that means they've already exhausted their own resources, tried to figure out themselves, and more likely than not, the over application of intensity.
Always.
Yep.
Yeah.
Almost
doing
always.
too much.
Number one, I would say.
Too much intensity. It's like go to failure, go crazy every set, push myself, and then what ends up happening when they plateau is they push that even harder. They push even more, feeling like, okay, well, I think I need to work out harder to make this happen. And then they get really, really flabbergasted when their progress doesn't just plateau, but go backwards. This is often when people hire me, is they'd come to me and say, I plateaued for a while. I'm going backwards, and I don't know what's happening. And it was almost always too much intensity. I would ask them questions about their workouts. And what's funny about this one, someone listening to this or watching this might be like, what are you talking about? Literally, you could try this yourself. If you've been working out for a while and you're not building muscle anymore, take your sets, cut the intensity down by 30%, and within a week, you tend to see gains come back. And you start to see strength and muscle gains. So that's got to be the first one.
Yeah.
The second one that I would see was that people, and this is tied to the first one, was that people treat lifts not like skills. In other words, they do
just getting through it. The workouts.
They do a bench press, and the idea is I'm just going to make my chest hurt.
Most people approach exercise like a form of punishment.
Yes.
Is like and judge their workout based off of how sore or how hard and difficult it was, which is so opposite to reap the most benefits. If you walked in and approached it like you approach any other skill or craft you're trying to get good at in your life, which is you're not doing that. You're not trying to kill yourself learning a new skill. You're trying to improve it and fine tune it and practice it and frequently, right? I think if you approached your lifts that way, you would reap far more rewards from it.
Yeah, so I like to use examples of other skills that I think translate a little easier for people. So it's like imagine going up to, you go up to a golf tee and you have your golf club and you swing at the ball and you hit it. And then an expert comes up and says, let me help you out. What he's probably not going to say is swing harder.
Yeah,
they're probably not going to say, oh, the reason why you're not hitting it harder or further is because you just need to swing much harder.
Yeah.
What they're probably going to do is look at your technique, and what you'll find is when you swing the club with better technique, you hit much further with less intensity, with less effort. It's the technique. This is true for exercise as well. When you look at an exercise like a deadlift or a squat or a press or whatever, there's a value that you can get from it, a muscle building value that you can get from it that is directly connected to how well you perform the skill of that lift. And so, but people don't know that. They think that this exercises are just the means to an end. Well, this is a shoulder exercise. This is a quad exercise. This is an exercise for my back. Not realizing that the skill and how they perform the skill is really what translates to the gains. So when you go to the gym, instead of thinking hit back, hit chest, hit shoulders, think perfect the deadlift, perfect the squat, perfect the bench press, perfect the overhead press. And then when you practice them like skills, suddenly you progress. Suddenly you start to see the strength and muscle gains. And that was a big one for me, telling my clients, when you go to the gym, I don't want you to work out your body parts anymore. Just get better at the skill of those lifts. And everybody got great results from that.
What's the last one?
Too much volume. Mm-hmm. Too much volume. In fact, we just had a caller earlier who, now her question was why she wasn't building muscle, but she didn't tell us. This was a follow-up. She actually called us back to tell us what happened. But what she didn't tell us is she was also at the same time simultaneously struggling with fertility. Nonetheless, our advice to her to build muscle was she was doing 4 or 5 spin classes a week. She was an instructor. She was also lifting 5 days a week, eating 2,000 calories a day. We took her lifting from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. We bumped her calories, and we had her take her spin classes down to once a week. And she suddenly saw incredible progress, of course, and she also got pregnant.
Yeah.
Because her body responded to all that. And it was because she was just doing too much, not allowing, when you think of the effects of strength training, imagine a light switch. You just got to turn the light on, allow that signal to happen, and then leave it alone so the adaptation process can happen.
Yeah, otherwise you're just healing. I mean, you're introducing. I think there's this common misconception that we really need to break the muscles down. I feel like that message is somewhat flawed. It's like we got to find that right dose. We got to find that right amount that stimulates this muscle response, and we keep you anabolic. But we're not just healing from that. Now we're actually like building and replenishing and recovering. And now the next time I go to introduce, I'm stronger than I was previous to that, and my body's now building and providing that muscle in response.
Yeah.
This one goes hand in hand with the first one. I just think that volume and intensity tend to be the number one reason why people have stalled progress or aren't building muscle anymore. I also think this highlights why MAPS 15 was such a banger for us. When you look back at all of our programs and the launches, like that program has and continues to outperform, and the feedback that we get is, oh my God, I can't believe how incredible this program is. And most people think that, oh, that's not enough for me. That's too little volume. And the opposite is true. And I think that's the reason why it's doing so well, is because I think a lot of people listen to the show, hear us talk about this and go, okay, well, let me give this a try. They give it a try. And lo and behold, within weeks, they're already seeing progress and change by cutting their workout like in half or more. And they're seeing tremendous results. So
what would you say was the percentage you would guess of people that are either underdoing it or overdoing it?
Yeah. So there's people who are consistent, who are consistently working out and not getting progress. A majority of them are overdoing it.
Yeah.
The underdoing it crowd is the inconsistent
They're
crowd.
there, but I would just say that's a very small minority.
Yeah.
It's the ones that aren't in the gym.
Yeah.
And probably not listening
they're not even there.
And they're not listening to a podcast like this.
Yes.
If you are a chronic underdoer, you're probably not listening to
You're not hitting too much intensity.
You're not listening to a fitness
That's
podcast for your information, trying to learn, trying to get better. It's typically the people. So people listening to this, you're more likely to fall in the category of the ones that are over applying intensity and volume. The people that aren't even listening to this are the ones that don't need to hear that message.
You got to just go do something.
Yeah, those ones are.
I like to use this example. I've used it before, just to kind of illustrate how the body adapts. But getting a callus on your skin is a similar form of adaptation, right? So when you get a callus, it's typically because you've irritated your skin in some way, and then what your skin does is it tries to build a callus to prevent any damage from happening in the future. So if I take a piece of sandpaper and rub the top of my hand and break some of the skin down, first that skin needs to heal, and then what it does is it adds an extra layer or two of skin, and it starts the callus. It starts to build the callus or the callus building process. But imagine if I just rub the hell out of my skin, make myself bleed, and then tomorrow do it again, and then tomorrow do it again, and then the day after do it again, and I just continue to do that.
Bleed.
Or I let the skin heal, but then I rub it off real quick and don't allow my body to build that extra or add the extra layer or two and start the adaptation process. What happens when you go to the gym? So, if you're working out consistently and seeing consistently no progress, it's definitely probably one of those things.
Yeah,
anyway,
agreed.
I got to tell you something so sweet that my son said to me this morning.
This morning?
Yeah. So, God, sometimes your kids will do something that just hits you, gets you emotional.
Yeah.
Because they say something so cute. Yeah. So we're making pancakes this morning, and we're hanging out. I typically will make them breakfast in the morning, and every once in a while I say something sweet to me or whatever. And this morning he says, he goes, "Papa, are you going to work today?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, I can still feel your heart even though when you're at work. And I'm like, what? I sat there
It's like right out of a Hallmark
I
commercial.
know, man. I'm like, what'd you say? I'm like, say that
so
again.
good.
Oh, it's the sweetest.
It's so
it's
good.
so cute when your kids.
I mean, sometimes they don't even got to say anything, dude. Just sometimes the way they look at you or the things they do, I swear. Is so cool.
Man, nothing will get you like that.
Yeah.
Nothing will get. Speaking of like sweet stuff and whatever, I was looking up some incredible data on the benefits of charity, of giving. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize there was so much data to support it. So the spiritual practices always talk about how, the more you give, the more you get, or how good it is to give and how you need to give or help others and that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. I remember when we interviewed Tony Robbins, who obviously this guy's extremely successful. Some accounts have him as a billionaire. Other accounts say he's maybe worth $500 million. Anyway, extremely successful guy. This guy consults world leaders and celebrities, and he's very, very well known. I remember when we talked to him, we asked him what was like one of the number one keys to success, and he said, "The more I give, the more I get." He goes, every single time, the more I give, the more I get, and it stuck with me. Well, anyway, I was looking up data today on this, and there's studies that show just how powerful this is. So, number one, the way that our brain can experience happiness sometimes is tied to novelty or excitement. Like you'll do something and it's exciting, but then if you do that same thing over again, it loses that effect.
Yeah.
So you seek out novelty. That doesn't happen
with giving.
No.
Yeah.
Every single time you give, even if it's the same amount to the same place, as long as it's voluntary, you get that novel effect in the brain that shows that. They also did studies on, for example, I'll tell you a study they did with some individuals on receiving or giving massages. So they had individuals either receive 3 massages a week or give 3 massages a week to infants. So they would go to these NICU wards or whatever and massage the infants. And the positive effects, the positive chemical release, hormone release, and subjective feelings of happiness were far happier, or higher, I should say, when they gave the massage than when they received it. And then I found data on money, and once you've reached your needs, like like I have my house, your basic needs. If you're looking at, and I like to position it this way, because as I'm reading this, I'm like, God, how would I position that? If you ask somebody like, okay, why do you want more money? First they'll say, well, I have my bills, I have to pay for rent. I have to say, well, beyond that, why do you want more money? Ultimately, it boils down to what? I want to be happier, right? So, I want to buy this thing, I want to do that. Well, why? Because I want to be happier. Well, when you look at the data on how much happiness you can get from money, it's far more cost effective to give than it is to spend it on yourself.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. So you're far better off. Let's say you have an overflow of, $10,000 a year is your overflow after you've covered your expenses. I could go out and buy myself a toy for $10,000.
That's right.
Or I could give away $1,000 and get this equal amount of return in a sense.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's interesting.
So there's studies that show that beyond your basic needs being met, if you add $100,000 to your income, your happiness will go up like 1%, maybe 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
It's significantly higher if you took that money and gave it.
I wonder if
measuring that like biochemically, or what are they?
All of it.
All the metrics.
All of it. They can measure this in the data that I've seen.
I bet a lot
biochemically, but also subjective.
I bet you if they've actually measured it to that level, then it looks kind of like this. Like, I bet initially they look very similar. Right, like you go out and buy the new toy or the thing that's $10,000.
I'm sure you get a spike.
Yeah, I bet you have a big spike because it's novel, it's new, you wanted it, you got it. But I bet it's got a steep drop off.
You are
right
after 100% correct.
Right, steep drop off. You're like, after you've had it for 6 months, now it's sitting in the garage. You don't even play with it. You don't even do anything with it anymore. You're over it, and it's flatlined. Where the thing that you gave may not have as high of a spike at first, but it consistently stays or grows. Because I can think about things that I've done for people, say 5 years ago, and it still makes me feel good.
Isn't that crazy?
And it's 5 years old, and I can look back and go like, oh, I remember, that was cool, and it gives me joy.
You hit the nail on the head. Yep. There's several studies on this, by the way, not one, but one that I'm looking at shows that the self-reported happiness from people who spent money on themselves had a steady decline in happiness over a 5-day period. But the happiness that they received from giving it or to other people or helping other people with it did not fade. So from a cost-effective standpoint, if you have enough money for yourself and you're secure, right? So you take care of your family, you're secure, everything's fine. And you're like, well, what am I going to do with this money? I want to improve my happiness.
Yeah.
The data shows unequivocally that using it to help others will give you far greater return than using it on yourself.
That's interesting.
Isn't that incredible? Yeah. So we're literally hardwired, whether you believe in from an evolutionary standpoint or from a spiritual standpoint, we are hardwired to do this. And Bishop Barron referred to this as spiritual physics.
Oh, physics. I thought you were going to say economy. Yeah.
No, spiritual physics. He said the more you give, the more you fill yourself up. The more you empty yourself.
It's one of those things too that if you have an experience that you just have to do it, because I think I remember like I had a hard time with that initially, like that feeling, because I always felt like I needed more, I needed more, I needed more. And this is how the whole Christmas thing started for me. And this has been now, I don't know, 15 years, maybe more now, that I've been doing that consistently. And I remember just like, you know what, I need to do this year. I just felt compelled that I need to do it. And then I think what kept me doing it was how good it felt, and how I remember, like, you know, the next year coming up, like, oh, just thinking about last year was like, that gave me so much joy and fulfillment that it's became like a thing that I've done every single year.
By the way, if it's required, you don't get the same thing.
Oh, no, different. I mean, I learned that as a kid when you had like, I mean, my mom asked many times for my sister and I's help and need with.
And you felt obligated.
Oh, God. And that actually created animosity and resentment, and, you know, and begrudgingly gave her money to like help out with food, groceries, and bills. Totally different when I can surprise someone and tell like a brother or something like that, hey, I got you, let me take care of your bill like this, because I chose to do it versus feeling like I've been asked or expected to do it.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, totally different.
It's so wild that, and it's interesting because I like data, because I think data sells it to the science person, right? To the person who's like, well, it's like, hey, listen, if you want to actually improve the quality of your life, the data shows that this is one of the most effective ways that you could do it, is by simply reaching out. And then also think of it this way, right? Because I said when it's required, the data shows it doesn't produce that, right? So now think of a society where you're taxed so heavily and it's all forced or whatever, versus a society where people are encouraged more and they do participate more in charitable giving. And then the feelings that produces in them, I believe it's not a far stretch to consider that those people are going to be more productive. They're going to be more entrepreneurial. They're going to be more innovative, and they're going to be just better for the world at large because of those joyful feelings.
Well, isn't that one of the arguments from the libertarian view, is that if we allow, instead of government coming in and deciding where we're going to put our money to help, that we have enough people enough good people that know that or feel that or understand that would come together and then solve a lot of those needs that we're supposedly hiring government to go do.
And it's not, and it's funny too, because they talk about, this happiness feeling, and it's not an ego filled, like, yeah, I'm cool. It's more of this, like, it's a long lasting. The part to me that was crazy was that the novelty effect remained. So like anything you do that makes you feel fun or happy or whatever, almost anything you do loses its effect when you do it repeatedly. This is why people will be like, you'll see wealthy people, they'll buy expensive car or they'll go to whatever. And it's like, it just doesn't do it for me anymore type of deal, right? But giving, the same effect every single time. They even showed a study where if you gave the same amount to the same charity, so nothing changed. There was nothing novel about it. The people had the same positive self-reported feelings of happiness.
I wonder how much that all changed too individually, like how some of us, I mean, I'm even thinking about like how, like I know you of all of us are probably the least materialistic or care about this stuff like that, like how much that plays in effect. Like I still definitely think I get a lot of joy from some things that I buy for myself. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I love to give, but I also enjoy like getting some shit too. So just being honest, where I feel like you don't really get that.
No,
I feel like you're robbed of that. I feel so bad for you.
No, there's things that there's definitely things I enjoy, but
do you?
Yeah, you know what it is? I grew up really, I don't know how much of a role this plays in, but I grew up very secure. With even though we weren't, I mean, we struggled.
But I feel like your brother's so opposite of you than that. He likes those things.
He's now reached the point where he's like me now.
Oh, he has.
Yeah, because he reached the level of success.
That's interesting. Yeah, he wasn't like that.
No, but he's reached a level of success now where I think he sees it, and he's a dad now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we grew up. My dad supported, a big family, blue collar. So it's not like we had all this money or whatever. But we always felt secure. It was never like I always felt secure. It felt stable. We never moved. We had the same.
Yeah, they never made you feel like they were struggling to get by.
Yeah, so I could see how that would become an issue. Like if you get evicted, you move in, whatever. I could see how like, no, I need to hold on to this, type of deal. So I don't know. I don't know how much of a role that plays in it. I definitely enjoy some things, but yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome data to look at and cite, because I think it sells it well to the person who's listening, to try it for themselves. Like try it out yourself and see.
That would be my suggestion. Just go do something, even if it's small, and see how you feel. And I think that the proof is in the pudding with something.
Yeah, and then that feeling is addicting, but not in a bad way, in a good way. And you find yourself doing it.
And I wonder, my point of why I was bringing that up about, me and, kind of tongue in cheek about how I love buying myself something was more to say, I wonder if because you care even less about that, do you get even more fulfillment from that than I do? Because I definitely get it. And I can attest to that, right? It's the reason why I do some of those things. But I also still really enjoy doing stuff.
Yeah.
If someone like you who's just like, I really don't want anything, I'm okay, then finding something like that is like, holy crap, this is like the holy grail for me because I don't even like buying myself something, but I really enjoy this.
You know what's cool about this data too is that the question used to be, do happy people give more to charity? Or is giving to charity what's making people happy? There was that argument for a while. Well, happy people just give more. That's why. No, they control for that. So now there's lots of studies that show it is not that happy people give more. It is that giving makes you happy. Hey, sorry to interrupt. We have a free guide titled Understanding Your Mood, Stress, and Sleep. It tackles all of those things from a health and longevity perspective. It's a totally free guide. So just click on the link at the top of the description below.
Speaking of happy and studies, I sent one over to Doug so he could read it so I don't like fumble it around with that. But did you know there is a direct correlation between your wife's happiness and her bedtime schedule with you?
What?
Yeah. I thought that's really fascinating. Doug, can you read it?
So according to research, studies have shown that couples who are more satisfied in their relationships tend to have more synchronized sleep schedules, meaning they wake up and fall asleep at similar times, with a particular correlation found where a wife's marital satisfaction is linked to greater sleep synchronicity with her husband.
That makes sense.
Essentially, when a woman feels more satisfied in her relationship, she is more likely to align her sleep schedule with her husband's.
That makes sense.
It does, right?
It makes sense because I can imagine like kind of an angry wife. She's like, go to bed so I could just have some time alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know that. And I have friends who they stay up past so they can have their alone time, what they're doing while they go to bed. And that's never been okay with Katrina. Katrina's always like, I can't maybe count on one hand how many times we did not go to bed at the same time.
Jessica gets mad if I just go upstairs 3 minutes before her.
Yeah.
Because I'll start walking upstairs. She'll come up and be like, why don't you wait for me? She gets upset.
At the same time.
Are you guys like that too?
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
Getting up's a little different though.
Yeah.
Because of schedules, like I don't know. I'm
Who wakes up first?
Well, she's just boop up, Like
that's Katrina
it
too.
It just takes me forever to just get moving. I mean, I try to get up when she gets up, and I'm just like very slow to.
Are you
move.
with the light? Are you sensitive to lights right out the gates too?
I mean, yeah, like lights help me get up. Like that's we've learned to I used to do the whole curtains and everything super dark and all that, but then I could not even get up. So I have to so we don't even do that. Like I don't even have some of my doors, they don't even have curtains anymore. And it's just like the natural light finally kind of helps with that. So yeah, I've had to work on that.
I will literally, because my wife's very sensitive to light in general, but especially in the morning when she first wakes up. If I shine a bright light on when she wakes up, it'll ruin her entire day. Oh yeah, she'll get literally will cause central nervous system overload for her entire day. So it's like everything stays very dark. In fact, she wakes up every morning now. She comes downstairs. She has a study Bible that she reads, and it's candlelight. So it's like she wakes up and
who's up? You're up first. You're up early.
We now these days we both wake up right around the same time. Yes, sometimes she wakes up before me. And sometimes I wake up before her. I guess it's pretty depends.
Katrina's these always days up before me.
Really?
She's always up.
So she goes with you and wakes up before you. So you sleep more than she does.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's always been amazing with that. We had actually got into this funny family discussion over the weekend with everyone down for the holiday and stuff like that. And they were talking about I made a comment that having a child is easier than having a dog. And it was my nephew and his wife who just
you don't really believe that, do you?
Yeah, definitely.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Having a child is easier than having a dog?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Are you talking about?
I definitely think so.
I can't even believe you're a parent. You said, really?
Yeah, I do. I think so. I think
how?
Okay.
I mean, I think
Explain.
that at least in my family, my son is very easy to get watched. If Katrina and I need a break or need a day, now this is probably dependent, and this is of course me, right? Like if you come from a family where you and your wife have moved to the middle of the country and you have no family and friends
Oh,
around
you're saying
you,
it's easier because people want to watch your
people
kid.
come in
just
and
in,
watch.
well, yeah, obviously there's certain aspects.
Because you don't drive your dog to school every day and deal with all,
Yeah, I mean, there's aspects of having a child, obviously, you can't just leave your kid in the backyard for fucking 8 hours. You know what I'm saying? But I don't find that difficult not leaving my kid in the backyard for 8 hours. Like, I just need to put him in the backyard for 8 hours. Like, that's not ever a thing that ever crossed my mind.
Okay.
There's aspects of raising the child that I think are easier than handling the dog, because the dog is like, nobody wants to take care of it but you. Nobody's doing anything with that dog but you. Where with the kid, our family supports a lot of raising him. I really believe it takes an entire tribe to raise a really good kid like that.
You should rephrase that though. You should be like, people love my kid more than they love my dog. That sounds way different.
Well, no, I mean,
you're about to get so many negative comments.
Well, I mean, it can offend somebody and all they want. Like, and just it created a great conversation between my nephew and niece who don't have a kid yet, and they're very scared and nervous because of the responsibility that comes with it. And that was my point of making that. It's like, sure, there's a time when you first have a newborn that is very, very high demand for both parents. But that's a short period of time. It's about a year of your life that you dedicate to that. And then after that year, so long as you have the support system around you and you've built good consistencies around the kids' sleep, eat routine, everything, and you have a great partner in your wife or husband.
But you leave your dog alone way more than your kid. You know what I mean? You don't just leave your kid alone. Like, go chill.
Well,
you spend a lot of time.
Not the dogs that we had. I mean, we had English bulldogs where I couldn't leave them alone for more than 4 hours. In fact, that was the mark. Was at the 4 hour period of time, if we left the house and they didn't have someone watching them, that's when they would destroy things. 6 hours was for sure you're coming back to something chewed, pissed on, shit on. And they were just needed that type of attention, and nobody would help. So it was all on you.
But you'll leave Max alone for 4 hours.
Well, I mean, with Katrina, that goes back. Oh no, of course. I mean, you can, with a good partnership, you can divide and conquer.
You just leave him some food. He's good.
I mean, I know that it gets people riled up that want to make raising a child so unbelievably difficult. But that hasn't been the experience for me at all. It hasn't been that way at all. I think that.
Does Katrina feel the same if I ask her, or is she like, well, yeah, it's because I do everything?
Yeah, no, I think she would. I think she would still agree, although she does do most things. I mean, I think that, and I made that point too to my nephew, because they came back. They came back and were like, "Oh my God, what about all the sleepless nights?" I said, "I don't have any sleepless nights. So my wife takes care of the kids."
For you, it's easier to have a dog.
Well, that was the argument I was making. I wouldn't say that for. I mean, if you don't have a wife like I do, you don't have a support system like I do, then absolutely that sounds so absurd to you. But I was explaining that to my nephew.
Because Katrina made you get up for the dog, so you get up for that one. But for your son, she's like, I'll do it.
No, you're right.
Throw it up.
You're right. I had probably more sleepless nights and frustrating moments with.
Because she just let you do it.
Yeah, it was handle the dogs. You know what I'm saying? Handle it. But my son, she's quick to make sure that she takes care of him, and we divide and conquer. And I don't know. I think
how do you guys divide? It sounds a lot like 90, 10.
Part of my son being raised well is also supporting him too, right? So somebody's got to pay the mortgage, someone's got to pay for the food, somebody's got to take care of my wife's lifestyle, the support of nannies and all this stuff like that. So if I'm left to do my best to do those things, and my wife supports me in doing that, then I can deliver on my end. Versus what happens a lot of times in marriages is this trying to divide things up of like, well, I've done this, so what are you doing? And it's like, well, it's your turn this night and my turn's next night. It's like, we've never operated that way.
That doesn't make sense in business. It doesn't make sense.
That's exactly right. And that was the real point of communicating this with my nephew, was getting him to understand that when you meet a really good partner and you guys have an incredible relationship, when you approach raising a kid, it's no different than like running a business. It's not it's a 50-50 divide down the middle. It's like you each do what you're best at and you help each other in that department. And, there was definitely areas that I had to get better for sure. Like I told you guys the other day when we were talking on the podcast about how I remember having a moment of realizing, like, listen, one of my wife's strengths is not putting the dishes away and doing those things like that. I can absolutely do that. If she's crushing it with my son upstairs by keeping him on his bath schedule, his reading schedule, then my ass can be down there making sure I'm picking up around the house and alleviating her of those things. And so to me, that's what makes a great partnership. That's what makes something like that smooth and not difficult. It's where someone in the partnership or both people in the partnership can't see.
I was
that.
going to ask you, does Max remember your dogs? Is he?
Oh yeah,
he does.
Oh yeah.
Are you guys going to get more?
No. I like to, again, this is how this conversation
travels so hard, right?
It's impossible. And this is another point too. So in the last 5 years that we've had Max, Katrina and I haven't done anything less when it comes to going to sporting events, going to concerts, traveling across the United States, other countries. We've done as much, if not more, in the last 5 years of having my son than we did the previous when we were no kid, but we had 2 dogs. And so it's hindered.
I have family members they'll cancel family events. Oh, we can't come. We don't have anybody to watch the dog. Can we bring the dog? We're like, no.
We had that for Thanksgiving. This is again how this all sparked up because my mother-in-law hosted Thanksgiving, and one of the texts that came over was no dogs.
Yeah.
And that screws like 3 people in the family that travel everywhere.
That's almost like a strategy if you don't want certain people to come over. You know what I mean? You send out that text.
Some people, don't understand social cues, and they just bring their dog anyway.
Yeah.
God, dude.
Man.
I have family members like that.
I got dogs, so I get it. But like, come on, dude. Like, there's certain places where you're just like, dude. For parties and things, you at least put it out there. Like, can I bring my dog? Like, but that's happened a few times.
You've had people show up?
Yeah, and then the dog's running through and like smashing everything, and you're just like, dude.
That's hilarious.
I'm not inviting you again. Like, no.
You have both. You've always had dogs, and you have 2 kids. Have the kids or the dogs given you more headaches?
Yeah. Well, on that point, yeah, it's because. They get unaccounted for. It's easy to because I'm focusing on the kids and them and raising them and doing all the things that.
Yeah, but there's like a list of things that the dogs could do that would make you consider,
like, I understand,
like giving them away.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't do that with your kids.
No,
well, that's also that also
thing.
proves the point, though, is that there's a different fulfillment that goes to doing the work to raising your kid than there is to the dog. There really is.
I mean, there's a guilt there on some level with like the dogs because originally that's how it started out with the family unit. It was like, yeah, we're dog people, and like and that was the thing. And then we had kids, and it was like, okay, well, we'll get back to you. And then we never did. I'm not like I do my best. I'll get home at night, and I'm like, I'll throw the ball for them, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's like it's the equivalent of like putting them on a treadmill. Like that's as much as I can give.
But you have active dogs too.
Very active dogs.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and that's why I'm like, I don't like chastise them as much because they bark and, they're not like super well behaved anymore like they were. I was training them constantly and putting the work in. You just have to like realize like where your priority stack, like where I can give. And I just can't give that same attention to the dogs.
And I think that all plays a factor. And I think you don't make that mistake with your kid.
No,
you don't go
you
like,
wouldn't. Yeah,
you wouldn't.
You wouldn't compromise.
And part of that is because there's a different joy, fulfillment, like, and all that is factored into.
So it's easier because you care less.
That's part of it, absolutely, and that's why I mean. It's
wait, you care less about the dog.
Obviously, it was a bold thing that caused a great conversation.
Cats is even less.
Yeah. But you have to factor all that in. Like if you're just like, are you going to do better at a job that you enjoy and you love, or a job that you don't? Of course, you're going to do better at the job that you love more, and so loving a kid more makes it easier.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying. So because it implies it's easier because there's less to do. But what you're saying is you'll do more willingly.
Yeah, well, it's easier on me. If I had to look back and compare what
you're saying.
It's easy, and it doesn't mean like minute for minute the time that. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's easier for me, and I'm trying to explain to my little nephew who's married with a dog but doesn't have a kid yet, who's stressed, who's obviously like nervous to have a kid because oh my god, it's going to be so overwhelming. It's like it's actually really
trying to reframe it for him. So yeah I know because that is sort of the thought is it's just too much for me. Like I'm good with the dog, and but it definitely you're gonna care more. You're gonna grow more as a person. Like a lot of like benefits with having a kid is you're not gonna have with having.
Do you guys think though it's a better strategy though to set them up expecting the worst so that at least they're like, oh, it's not as bad. We're setting them up for like, oh, he said it's easier than the dog. And then
I don't think it matters.
Yeah. 4 months later, he's like, what the hell?
So I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from my mother-in-law, who reminded me before we had a kid that, son, don't allow anybody else's experience to bleed into yours.
Yeah.
You go create your own experience, because I can't tell you how many people we on this podcast, I'm pretty sure you guys have told me, would tell me what was going to happen at what stage of my son's life with our relationship, and none of it's come true. It's been how I wanted it to come true because I controlled that situation. Like, there's never been, like, everyone trying to tell me that, oh, just wait, he's never going to want to do this with you. Oh, just wait, he's going to just want his mom, or just wait, he's going to be this. It's like, yeah, none of that happened. He ended up being exactly what I wanted him to be because I felt like I created that for myself. And so my suggestion that I would tell anybody is like, you absolutely, however that kid and that relationship and that experience is, you control. You will dictate that.
Were there some expectations you had that you kind of were like, oh, okay, I didn't expect this? I think TV was one. I remember you being like, he's not going to watch TV for 2 years.
Yeah. So there was things that I felt like I was going to do that I would be like, that I ended up being like, oh, okay, I'm a little more relaxed on stuff like that. That happens a lot, actually. I learned that lesson early on.
It's impossible to know what it's going to be like until you have it.
It's all speculation.
You can't. There's no way you could possibly know. How do you know? Like
future tripping, like you're gonna think about always worst case scenario, and so it's like, I don't know. Like I refrain from giving people advice for the most part, especially with parenting. You got like that's one of those things you really have to be all in and experience yourself.
That's my advice, or a thing that I tell anybody, is that what you don't want to do is neglect that everything you say, do around that kid is going to impact them. Yeah. So you will create the environment. You want a kid that's this way or that way, then you have to be mindful.
How do you guys feel when like people with no kids give people with kids advice?
That's the absolute worst.
That's the worst, dude.
Well, it's like a fat trainer.
Yeah. It's worse than that.
That's like a fat trainer. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, dude. You're not gonna tell me.
No idea.
I have cousins that would be like, "Whoa, if that was my kid."
That's happening.
Like, you don't have kids. Shut your mouth. Well, not anymore.
I was gonna say,
everybody has kids now.
I really don't see too much of that. I think that's hilarious,
especially with child rearing and all that. Yeah. Like, Captain Left Field over here. Hey, you should really, tell them to stop. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You have no context.
You have kids.
Go back in the corner.
Shut your face, dude.
Yeah, you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
What's happening right now. That's a good time. Hey, sorry to interrupt. Look, we have a free guide. It's the benefits of eating whole foods. This gives you a shopping list, what foods are best for proteins, fats, carbohydrates. There's recipe samples. It's all based on real, whole, natural foods, and it's a free guide. It's totally free. You can get it if you go to WholeFoodsGuide.com or by clicking on the link in the description below. I'm going to take a left here real quick. I have a friend of mine that switched to ButcherBox, messages me 3 months later and is like, I lost 5 pounds. What? And I've changed nothing. And I said, well, are you eating the grass-fed meat? And he says, yeah. Is grass-fed meat fat burning? And I said, no, it's less calories.
It's a lot less calories.
He had no idea.
Yeah. Have you guys ever looked at like a ribeye steak that's grass-fed versus?
Doug, can you pull up like
you're talking about like 100
in terms of that, but it's also receiving
100 to 200 calories.
Like
it's higher in protein, less in fat from calories.
Yeah.
So what he did is he replaced most of his red meat. He ate a lot of red meat. He replaced it with the ButcherBox red meat. Mm-hmm. Lost 5 pounds without trying to cut anything. And didn't realize he was eating less calories. That's what happens.
Yeah. It's 100 to 200 calories per effect. Serving of steak. I've looked at it before, right? Yeah. Doug?
Yeah, I'm looking at a ribeye is grain-fed is typically 250 per 3 ounces. Their math is kind of weird here. 10-ounce grass-fed is 481 calories. I have to do the math here.
Yeah, do that. You're right.
It's like hundreds.
It's like it'll save you, if you eat a lot of red meat, it'll save you hundreds of calories a day.
Yes.
From just switching without cutting the ounces.
I was breaking down like a 6 to 8 ounce piece that just did. You start eating a 10 ounce or you eat it multiple times a day and you're talking about 400 or 500 calories, which is a lot.
So you're not cutting the size of your steak. You're not cutting anything.
I always had to explain this to people though too, is that like, this is also why it doesn't have the same taste. Like you have something that has 500 more calories of fat. Go take that steak and put a cube of butter on it and tell me if it tastes, it tastes good.
So the 10 ounce grain-fed would be 830 calories.
And 10 ounce, what was grass-fed?
481.
So 300 less calories.
Yeah,
more.
320
That's
less.
huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
That's one piece. That's one meal, one serving.
And that's
if you-
the fattier the cut, the bigger the difference you'll see.
Yeah.
That's what you'll find.
Yeah. So it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always tried to, because I still enjoy a grain-fed steak every now and then. Like my goal is always like at home, I'm preparing the grass-fed butcher box stuff. When we go out to eat, go to a nice steakhouse, we tend to enjoy it. Although some steakhouses do have grass-fed steak, and I will enjoy it when we're there. But I mean, typically they're grain-fed steaks, So
I can feel it in other ways too, gut health,
inflammation,
because of the fatty acid profile. But just the lower calories alone, it's like you don't have to cut the amount of meat that you're eating, and you've already cut your calories just naturally just through doing that. Speaking of cutting calories and stuff, do you guys know what the longest recorded fast? Purposeful fast
wasn't this like a
year,
like a obese
that guy, that obese guy
gigantic
lost
dude.
hella pounds,
So
hundreds of pounds,
400,
in a year.
500 pounds or something.
Yeah, so the guy's name was Angus Barbieri. In 1965, he was 27-year-old guy. He weighed 456 pounds.
Okay.
He fasted for 382 days. Wow. So over a year, all he took were multivitamin and potassium supplements. He ultimately lost 275 pounds. He ate nothing. By the way, how often do you think he pooped? Remember, this is no food.
Never.
No food. Once every 40 to 50 days.
Yeah, never.
And what was that? Probably his fat that he was metabolizing?
I don't,
Had to.
I don't want to know, dude.
That's what it was, dude.
Sludge.
That was his own,
Do not recommend
it was his
this.
own energy.
Do not recommend this as a strategy for anybody.
No.
For sure.
No. Actually, if you do that, I mean, that's crazy though, right?
I mean, he was monitored and everything by doctors, right?
Yeah, he had coffee, water, potassium,
Well,
and
that's the coffee.
multivitamin.
The coffee.
The coffee's
cleaning-
what
That's
did
what
the
cleaning
40-day
him
poop,
out
yeah.
every 40 days. Yeah. Cleaning the pipes out. You know what I'm saying? That's what that did right
Imagine
there.
not pooping for 50 days. That's weird.
That is
And then when you
weird.
finally do, what's happening? Oh yeah.
I mean,
I mean, that's all reserve energy. I mean, like,
It's his own body fat.
he's
He
just
pooped
eating
out.
himself.
yeah,
I know, right?
That's super wild.
It's great. It was all monitored. It was like an experiment. So he came in and got checked by doctors and the whole thing, just to see.
So, in terms of his skin and all that, did it like
No
have
idea.
real? Because it was gradual, I assume.
Well,
so
he
it was
lost
probably.
he lost 275 pounds in a little over a year. So that's a
fast.
lot.
That's fast.
Well,
bro.
okay.
That is
Yeah.
a lot
So it
of
was
weight.
just saggy.
Yeah,
skin
he had to have
everywhere.
loose skin.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was exercising. Right? He wasn't training or
No,
lifting
nothing.
weights.
You know what's interesting about this? I would wonder.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't be able.
I wonder
to.
if I could find out
Overexert
how,
easy.
like, did he gain it back? Like, what the deal was? Like, I would love to know what happened
That's
afterwards.
super interesting.
Yeah, no, that's it. 382 days of no food whatsoever. I think that's so absolutely crazy.
Doug, sorry, random question. Did you cook for Thanksgiving?
Nothing. I did zero. Oh, actually, I did. I made Brussels sprouts.
Was that by choice or what?
I was asked to make them. Yeah.
You're famous for the Brussels, dude. Your Brussels are
Yeah. So I did end up making Brussels sprouts.
You are.
But
Speaking of cooking, I looked this up also. We were going to talk about Our Place, which is they make cookware, right? And the selling point of their cookware, besides it being high quality, is it doesn't have these forever chemicals in there.
Yes.
It's the place where we tend to get the most forever chemicals is in our cookware.
Oh, it makes
What do they
sense.
say? The Teflon flu. It's a thing now.
Oh, is that really a thing? A Teflon flu?
Dude, it's connected.
Look it up.
It's clearly connected to testicular cancer, kidney cancer, and other cancers, as well as, ready for this, obesity. Obesity. This is a zero calorie
Getting hit from all
chemicals.
angles, man.
0 calorie chemicals encourage the body to gain body fat from these forever chemicals.
This is also an example of if you're trying to be better about these things, like it's one of the bigger rocks. If you talk about where we pick up the most, because
just change your cookware.
It feels like there's, deodorant and any skin stuff you put on, and
But if you're consuming food
But
and it's touching it,
cooking-
constantly,
it's
but
cooking your
I
food.
feel like the two biggest things that I changed in regards to like forever type chemicals and trying to be better in my life is glassware instead of plastic.
Yep.
And then the
especially
using
the drinking water.
using like an an iron
me.
skillet like.
Do you guys buy water in plastic jugs at all?
So I'm not going to be anymore.
I mean, I
reset
do it
the
on
filtration
lazy,
system.
but yeah, I try to keep it in a.
So I
have an Alhambra one that actually has a protectant. I forget what it's called, but it's so you don't get the plastic.
So I get one too that gets delivered, but it's glass.
Yeah.
It's now the problem with it is it's a big heavy piece of crap.
You should. We did it right now because we're setting up the house right now.
Reverse osmosis.
Yeah, just put it in your sink and put it.
Because you can install
that is the move,
bro. It's not that expensive.
Not that it's expensive. It's just I gotta do it. Plus, I like the water that I get. It comes in a glass bottle. It tastes so good.
It was so annoying. I do that right now. And it's so annoying.
It's also you know what? It's also a little dangerous. My brother got the same delivery, and you guys know I told you about his kids. They're just on fire like he was when he was little, and his son thought it'd be cool to like push one over.
Oh my god!
Nobody got hurt or anything, but
that's
he's like, bro, I got to put this thing somewhere my kid can't reach, dude. By the way, every time he tells stories like that, his kid is just like him. He's so happy and so lovable. So you never get mad at him for just being on fire. But every time his kid does something, my mom's always like, oh yeah,
that was
how you like that?
You like that?
How you like that?
Payback.
He put my mom through hell, dude. Did I ever tell you guys?
Would she say he was the most difficult? Is that what she would say?
Oh, bro.
Karma.
I mean, my sister when she was a teenager, she was a tough one, man. She is my sister. She's the second, right? She's actually, this is straight up. She's the strongest person I know. I don't mean physically. I mean, she just a tough. Like she gets through things and she's tenacious as hell. But when she was a teenager, what that looked like was like rebellion. And my dad is old school. So my dad was not the kind of dad that's like, hey, how do you feel? Why do you feel this way? What's going on? I'll let you have your moment and then I'll come back. My dad's old school Sicilian. So he's going to go even more. And so him and my sister were like, when she was a teenager. So that was tough.
Oh, wow.
But my brother, when he was little, dude, I think he was 2. We lived in a 2-story house, and he climbed the stairs on the outside of the stairs and was hanging from the balcony with his hands, and he was just calmly calling my mom, Mom, what? Come here, please. Come here. She comes over and he's hanging. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah, dude, hanging from the top of the thing. That was him. Yeah.
I learned something interesting. Speaking of siblings, like on this interview with Billy Corgan, he's the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins.
Yes.
So randomly, he had never talked about this, but I guess like his mom was kind of expressing to him that his dad was a traveling musician, all this kind of stuff, and had like some mistresses and had some illegitimate kids out there. And said like, that famous comedian Bill Burr, like I'm pretty sure like that's your dad's kid, and you guys are like,
what?
What?
And
he's
no
like,
way.
No way. And then you start looking at it, he's like, oh my God, like I guess he looks just exactly like his dad. Like, and so Billy Corgan doesn't really look anything like his dad, but he totally sees that connection and like. And I'm like, wow, can you imagine? Like he produced, Billy Corgan and, Bill Burr. Like that's crazy.
Do you know Bill Burr's story? Because I don't know
I don't really know his story as much. I'll have to find out.
My favorite comedian.
He's the best, like one of the best of all time.
My favorite like illegitimate whatever stories or theories is Justin Trudeau. He's a prime minister of Canada.
Oh yes,
and Fidel Castro.
Fidel Castro.
You ever seen that?
If you see the pictures,
his mom.
Did you hear about the meetings that with him and Trump?
Yeah, he's like, if you do tariffs on us, you'll destroy Canada.
Yeah.
And apparently Trump said,
"Oh,
we'll make you the 51st state."
Yeah, and you be the governor.
Is that real?
Did he really say that? That's spreading around the internet. I don't know. That's
what the reports are. I mean, it was in quotes when I saw it. So,
but have you seen the pictures of where they make the claim because Trudeau's mom was close with Fidel Castro?
Yeah.
And if you look at a picture of Fidel Castro and Justin Trudeau, bro,
it's
that look. He looks just
they're very
like
close.
Him. Yeah,
very,
let's see if that,
very,
if that
very much
yeah,
a resemblance.
Look at that, dude. That's his dad for sure,
like,
bro.
Come on, dude.
Look at that.
Wow.
Wow, and that's the younger pic. Wow, they look identical almost.
I know.
Nuts.
Oh yeah. I know. Isn't that funny?
Wow.
Hilarious.
Now, did somebody match it up and then the rumors start, or were there rumors?
No, because she was friendly with him. Apparently, they knew each other. There was like a whole deal. Like so, like it wasn't like they never met. They apparently knew each other and met. quite a bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, a lot.
They got to do a DNA test on that one.
For sure.
That's
all right.
wild.
One last study. So did you guys know that just based off of smell, I'm going to pull up the study, just based off of smell, that women can pick out whether a man is single or not.
What?
I believe it.
They took T-shirts and they had men in relationships and men in who were single.
This one does his laundry.
Put them on, then they took them off, and they did like a little exercise in them, so there's a little bit of sweat in them, and the women were able to consistently pick out that who the single guys were.
Just by the pheromones or like on a subconscious level.
This is funny and interesting because obviously I've openly talked about my steroid use all through my 20s,
Right.
most of my life, right, on and off. And I used to always tell my buddies, I'm like, dude, it's like clockwork. The minute I start my testosterone again, I get like this added attention from women. It's like
Even
as if-
before your body changed?
Yes, even before. Yeah, obviously, if I make this big transformation, that's more likely that it's due to what I look
Right,
like.
you got a bunch of
But it
young
would be
dudes
like
on
the next week after taking the shot. Then all of a sudden, this interest would start kicking up, and I'm like, dude, it's like clockwork. As soon as I take
Some
testosterone,
chemical, like,
now,
reception.
right? And okay, you could probably say my confidence level increases, and I'm working out, and so maybe I'm looking better. Like I don't know, but it was something that I used to talk about all the time because
So
I
pheromone
I've seen
science
that
is real.
too from just from an attractive, like they pick out like who they're attracted to.
Men with higher
also with the
testosterone.
t-shirts. Yeah, they
Yes.
just smell the t-shirts.
When women are ovulating, they'll pick out men with higher testosterone levels based off their smell or just a face. Especially when they're most fertile. So when they're most fertile, they'll be attracted to the man with the highest testosterone. Which the theory is it's got the best
chances.
Yeah, the best DNA, the best genes or whatever.
Interesting.
I mean, pheromone science is interesting. It's real. That's why we have
Perfumes and
armpit hair and pubic hair.
Oh, I think you say perfumes and stuff too. That's like that whole market is based off
Yeah,
of that, right?
yeah.
Is trying to figure that science out of like what people love.
Yep.
just bottle it up. It's
During Rome, during ancient Rome, the gladiators used to sell their sweat.
yeah.
So there were vendors.
Well, they got visited quite a bit by like nobles, right? Like women that would pay high dollar to go down there.
but you could
Oh,
buy
really?
bottles of their sweat, and they would sell them. It was like a real expensive thing that you could buy.
You pour it on you, or you drink it. What do you do?
I don't know. I think they just smelled it. I don't know. It's a good question. Oh my god,
They've done weirder stuff, dude. Come on.
I know Romans were just some weird.
Yeah,
shit,
come on,
bro.
dude. It's not that weird.
All right. I want you to. Hey, you sent me a clip today. I thought this guy's pretty awesome. I think we should give him a shout out.
Oh, the Instagram one. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that is a good shout out. I just recently found
What's his name? Social.
Cap,
What's his
Social Cap.
Social
Doug?
Cap official.
I sent it to Doug too. What is it, Doug?
Social Cap Official.
Social Cap official. Yeah, ex-financial advisor that just gives out free advice. He's got almost 1 million people following
Speaking
him.
of charity,
Just
he
really-
talked about a great way to. If you're very wealthy, you start. I don't know.
a family. It's a family.
You start like an organization that's
family
run by your
government.
family.
Yeah.
The funds go in there and they're not taxed.
Yeah.
So long as 5% of it goes to charity.
Yeah.
And then you put your kids or something in charge
Yeah,
of
and
it. for you.
so I sent it over.
Charitable Remainder Trust, probably.
That's okay.
So I sent it over to Doug originally because I wanted to look at. We're talking to people right now, right? And I've heard Shaq talk about this and some other professional athletes that have been well advised. Like one of the first things that they do is basically start like a. It's a family. It's in that clip. It's like one of the first things he says, but it's basically an entity that it's a charitable entity, but then you can appoint, your mother, your kids, they're all part of it. They have salaries and everything. And then as long as 5% is going off to charity, that whole thing is like,
Which means you
tax
say you
deductible.
make even more money because 5% is less than the 30% you pay in taxes.
Right. And I think it's up to 30% of your income. So if you're, let's say you make $1 million a year, you can
put
take
300 grand in there.
Yeah, 300 grand can go in there, and 5% of that 300 grand has to go to charity. But the rest of that money can be allocated towards paying family salaries and whatever, and what it takes to.
I swear, the reason why the tax code is so complicated is because these people figure out ways to give themselves, all these breaks and stuff.
Yeah, that's the point of it.
Yeah.
It's interesting how we've structured things like that too, and you have to reach a certain level to even afford the advice. on that.
It's so complicated.
Which is so interesting.
Who the hell knows?
But that's also what makes someone like this really cool to follow, because that's what his whole stick is that I've retired as a financial advisor. I give free for free. And even as
disrupting that.
He's like, I don't
process.
follow anybody. I don't hide. So if anyone ever messages you saying that it's me, I don't take clients. Like, I'm here to just give out the free advice type of deal. So it's kind of cool that he's got this whole page dedicated to all this tax and financial advice. And he's not soliciting or trying to sell you on anything, which I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, check his page out.
Probiotics have been shown in studies to improve gut health, to improve the health of your skin, improve cognitive function, reduce anxiety and depression. The problem is that most probiotics on the market are terrible. There's no regulations. You don't know what you're getting. Well, there's a company called Seed. This is the world's best probiotic. They're live bacteria. They get to where they're supposed to go. This place is the best. Seed is the best by far. Anyway, go check them out. Get yourself a discount. Go to seed.com/mindpump. Use the code 25mindpump. Get 25% off your first month's order of their daily symbiotic. All right, back to the show.
First question is from Amelia Hurtline. How do you know if a lagging body part isn't growing because you're doing too much or because of other factors?
If the rest of your body's progressing and that area isn't, the issue probably is more like you're not able to connect well enough to that body part.
That's step one, really.
Yeah, so like if you do a compound lift, I'll use the example of like your butt. Like you're doing squats and your quads are growing, hamstrings are growing, your butt isn't responding. It's probably because the quads and the hamstrings are doing more of the work than they should for that squat. So you want to find ways to connect better your glutes, or maybe do more glute-specific exercises like hip thrusts, which are easier to connect to before doing your squats. But that's usually the issue. Sometimes the issue is not enough volume, but if you're going to increase the volume on a lagging body part, you got to take it from other areas. Don't just add volume to your workout.
Yeah, our good friend Ben Pokolsky did a clip, I think a couple of years ago, I remember, and because I thought that it was interesting. And it actually, he gave a percentage, and it was a very high percentage of lagging body parts and its relationship to a poor connection, the inability to connect to that muscle, almost always. So if someone has a lagging body part, almost always it's connected somehow to just a poor connection.
And the problem,
your inability to really contract and work that muscle through.
Then that
its full
affects
range.
your recruitment process and everything else. And so, you prioritize certain muscles to take on the load. And so, to take the time back to make sure you're in that good anatomical position to really, maximize the potential for you to really feel that process and recruit at that specific muscle is.
And the issue too is that the problem perpetuates itself.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I bench press, my chest is lagging, my delts and triceps are developing more. I'm going to keep bench pressing, not fix the connection issue.
And they just
even more of a problem can happen because now I'm learning how to press with my shoulders and triceps more, right?
Right.
So one way to fix this is to do isolation exercises for the lagging body part first to get that connection, that feel. That tends to change your technique and form for the compound lifts. So you can start to connect and feel those muscles. And it also takes time. Also, when you start doing this, you have to learn how to reconnect.
You have to retrain it.
Retrain and then give yourself some time. And again, if you add volume, take it away from other body parts. The mistake I made, a lot of people make, is they add volume, but they don't take it away from other areas, and then you overtrain.
And for the audience that is can relate to this, it helps us to answer this even more specifically when you know the body part.
That's right.
Right. So if you tell me it's this body part, then the advice could be even better. Obviously, I think you're spot on. The general advice is true. But if we knew exactly what lagging body part, we could give even more specific advice on things that would help.
Next question is from Cole Rowe. Is there any real science behind compression shirts, leggings, etc.?
There is. There actually is.
That's why there's a market there.
It will improve your performance, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Seems to reduce soreness and inflammation. Speed up recovery perceptually, yes. Now, does this translate to better gains? That's the question. I don't know. The data there doesn't really show that. But if you want better performance, then it seems to.
It's an external signal, right, for a bit more stability.
So, okay, I'm so glad you said that, Justin, because people might be thinking, how does leggings make me squat better? Is it because the leggings are tight and it's making, it's giving me, no, it's not that much support. It's not like wearing a squat suit, but it's the external signaling, right? It's the fact that something's squeezing around my legs that tends to probably change
Same thing like
how I
kinesio
stabilize.
tape,
Yes.
It has a similar process to that. So
Yeah.
I remember
You were big on these.
I was big. And I remember when you first did it and went, oh shit, I feel the difference. You remember when you actually put a pair on?
Because I made fun of you.
Yeah.
Because you were always wearing tights. I'm like, what are you wearing, dude?
And I'm
as long
like,
as you wear shorts over it.
I remember.
Yeah,
I did.
please
I
don't
did.
do
I
it.
always
Guy at
wore.
the
I
moose
always
knuckle.
wore short. I wasn't that guy, right? So I wasn't that guy.
I've seen that guy before.
Everybody has seen
Always
that
wanna
guy.
just-
Everybody's seen the vein.
Stop
This was like one of those things where I remember doing it and then just having just one of the best squat sessions I'd ever had, and thought, well, that was weird. Oh, let me do that again, and then it became a staple of lifting that way, and I loved it. And I remember you making fun of me and then doing it and going like, I think I really like the feeling that is. I mean, I don't that often. But yeah, if you want like a little bit of an edge, I think there's
It works for upper body too.
yeah,
You wear like
think,
a rash guard.
I think going and buying these things thinking that it's going to like really move the needle, no. But I definitely think that, yeah, if you got the money to buy them, you like wearing them anyway.
Now, I prefer to not wear them because I like to see what's happening in the workout. I like to see the pump. When I'm wearing like a compression shirt, I can't really see the pump and everything.
Yeah.
So it might feel better in one way, but not the other. But yeah, I don't know if it translates to better gains. But if you've been working out for a while, try it out because you might like it. By the way, we are running a sale this month on some workout programs. MAPS Aesthetic and MAPS Symmetry, both very popular programs, both 50% off. If you're interested, go to mapsfitnessproducts.com, but use the code December50 for the discount. All right, here comes the show.
Next question is from CMOS23. If you've seen the same trainer multiple times at the gym giving poor advice or allowing poor form, would you eventually say something?
Oh,
No, not if you want to get punched in the face.
Yeah.
If
If I'm
talk to their clients.
let me ask you guys this personally. You go to the gym. Let's say you go to the gym regularly and you see a trainer giving well, you see this all the time anyway.
Of course.
But it starts to look dangerous. Do you say something?
I mean, define that for me better.
Depends how
yeah, if
dangerous.
it-
Yeah, it
It's
depends
gonna,
on
like, hurt somebody,
I mean,
yeah,
I
I'm
see
gonna
some
say
like
something.
old lady that's going to kill her. So of course I'm going to go save her. Yeah, of course I'm going to go save her life. But I mean, like, what do we mean by that? Like, if I see somebody doing a lat pull down with like shit technique and they're like, pulling in front of them, and like, am I going to go over and interrupt? No, I'm not going to go interrupt the workout like that.
I mean, you see that all the time, and I go to gyms and I see that often.
So
I'll be honest, I don't see it as often as I used to.
I definitely wouldn't at this point in my career. Now, maybe if I was still building my trainer business and looking for clients and trying to be better, like maybe I find that person and offer some of my free service and help so that I could educate them. I definitely am not going to disrespect somebody in the middle of their training sessions, because that's a quick way to find an enemy, and that won't serve you very well. But if I did see this lady, let's say, and I see her every Tuesday when I training with this trainer, and he's doing shit workouts all the time, I might find my way to bump into her conveniently in the parking lot or the front office area and just introduce myself and offer some free service.
I go train my client right next to them and then do everything the right way. This is how we do it.
Right. That's actually another great strategy. If I was training a client, I would find my way. I would take my client over next to them, and so
What they're doing is stupid.
Yeah.
Say it real loud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, because here's the thing too, like you have to understand that, I mean, I'm big on relationships, and that you doing that and insulting another trainer.
Yeah, like, are you going to be effective?
Yeah,
That's the question.
exactly.
Like, is it for you or is it for them?
Right. Normally it's to feed your own ego.
That's right.
Normally most trainers that feel compelled to do this want to feel smart, want to feel superior. That's the wrong motivation. If it's truly to help this lady, well, okay, well then find a time that doesn't embarrass that trainer and that you can introduce yourself and then offer your services for free, and then let your services do the speaking, right? That you do that good of a job. And then that's how I would do something like this. But going in there, interrupting a session to sound smarter, I don't know if that's going to serve you too much.
Next question is from Mike Malagese. I'm 21 years old. What would you guys tell your 21-year-old self, financially, spiritually, physically, and mentally?
Why don't we break each one down?
Yeah. Well, the caveat would be that our 21-year-old self would listen.
Yeah, let's pretend they would
Let's
listen.
just imagine fantasy world. Because that's the hard part, right?
Let's start with financial. We'll go
what I'm doing.
each one.
Yeah.
Financially, I think that, and I was hanging out with my nephew this weekend, who's 17 years old, and I said, Millionaire Next Door, I think, is a incredible read, and that anybody in their early 20s should absolutely read. I think the principles behind that are so important, and especially for the mistakes I made in my 20s. And that's just teaching you behaviors around money and how to be fiscally responsible. I think too many people think that the answer is, oh, I just need to make more money. And that's not true. Because if you don't build a good habits around money, it doesn't matter if you make 40 grand a year or you make 400 grand a year. You'll still be, believe it or not, in the same predicament.
You'll be broke at 400 grand a year if you don't have the skills.
That's right. And so read that book, learn how to live well below your means. And there's very specific things like what percentage of your income should be towards a car and living. And so I didn't know any of that stuff. I found out the hard way by doing it wrong and then learning from that. I wish I would have read that. So that's my financial advice.
Financially, for me, it would be live well below your means. And then save and then invest, because the rate of growth compounds with investments. So if you're 21,
it's really about investment,
and you're living well below your means, and you're investing your money at 21, after you save a certain amount, right? So save some money first, then start investing. By the time you're 41, you could be pretty close to being pretty well off. That 20-year period, it really does compound.
It's just really getting you to think more long term, and not in the moment. And I was pretty good about living below the means, but in terms of growing and thinking about how to do that, at that young of age, that's just something to convey. I would hope I could listen to that.
Well, I think I want to add to what you guys said, because I get asked this question a lot, where I get someone in my DMs who are like, "Hey, Adam, I've got 10 grand or 50 grand or maybe even 100 grand that I've saved up. How should I invest this?" And they're 21, 23 years old. And I have the same answer for the 10 grand person as the 100 grand person. And that is at that point of your life, I'm investing it in myself, meaning I'm adding to my skill sets. I'm improving on my current skill sets. So I'm making myself more valuable in the marketplace. That is one of the best investments you can do. Right. That is far better than a 5% or a 9% return on your 10 or 100 grand. Go improve your skill sets, because that will pay you back, and that will get you ahead much faster. So that early in the age, under 100. Now, you had $1 million and you're like, okay, there's a different conversation on how because you could set $1 million up to compound and set your life up for the rest of your life. But typically when you're 21, you don't got
20-year-old saved like 10, 20 grand. Really crush
it. You're probably killing it if you save that much, and you're thinking, oh, should I go put this in the S&P or no? Go reinvest that in yourself and improve your skill sets and your value in the workplace.
All right. So spiritually,
I think you need to have this practice, and I'm not going to tell you which one I think is most important, but one of my favorite things I ever heard a guest say on here, I don't know if it was Bishop Barron who said it first or Arthur Brooks, but whether you believe it or not, you worship something. And if you don't decide on what that is by this time in your life, it will be decided for you and by your actions and the things that you drive. And I'll tell you that all the worldly things that you can worship are fleeting and will end up in despair and unhappiness and a lot of things that will not work out for you. So finding some sort of spiritual practice or higher belief than yourself, I think, is paramount to long-term success and overall health.
And that's what you say to yourself at 21, or just to a 21-year-old in general?
Well, I already have found this myself.
You did already, right?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a general advice to 21. I was 7 years old. I had asked God into my heart, and I would consider myself a Christian. So I wouldn't have to give this advice. It was one of the few things I did right.
For me, I for sure would say read the Bible with an open mind and an open heart. That's it. I just start there. Just open your heart, open your mind, read it, and then I know the rest. It'll do the rest. I was closed. I was an atheist. I was a pretty hardcore atheist at this point. But what happened, and I was always searching, but I wasn't open to the Bible. I wasn't open to the Word. So I didn't look at it with an open mind. I looked at it with a closed mind and a mind of defense. Let me defend against this, and that cost me decades of misery for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I was born and raised into, and something that I adopted real early as well, kind of similar to Adam, but has gone through quite its own path and journey. And I think it's really just staying consistent with it. And there's moments of inconsistency, and there's moments of judgment and hypocrisy, and seeing the human element of it, and then coming back and realizing that I need to just focus on the overall message, and like you said, like bringing this like outside of myself, directing everything, and allowing the higher power to kind of influence my decision.
Physically,
I would say, and I like the advice that we give about approaching exercise as practice. I wish that, this is speaking to myself and any other 20-year-old, I would have looked at the big five, right? The 5 major lifts that we talk about all the time. And I would have just practiced getting really good at all those movements. That my routine was centered around perfecting those movements and being a master at those movements. And I really believe that if you do that in your early 20s, a lot of the other stuff will fall into place. It really will. And so approach exercise in the gym by becoming a master at those 5 lifts.
I'm trying to think of what would have impacted me the most, like what one single physical type of advice would give me the biggest impact. And I think it's sleep. I think if I could have convinced myself to go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every day, give yourself at least 8 hours, knowing how I was at 21, I think that would have had a huge impact. I mean, at 21, I would routinely sleep 5 hours a night. So it would have had a massive impact on me physically, actually mentally too, but physically for sure.
What's funny is I was just thinking about this. I was talking to Courtney because growing up, I was always like very inclined to eat meat. Like that was my favorite thing to eat. And I just was always chastised for that. Like it was always like this weird thing because every time I go to some family function or some other dinner somewhere else, like they were always concerned about me eating all the meat, so nobody could get any. And I always felt like that was wrong. Like I don't want, it was just weird. But to trust in the fact that I was like on the right path with that.
So
I knew what was good for me. Eat the meat. Be comfortable eating all the meat, and make more of it.
That's the best advice you ever.
And then also the mobility piece. Like I really wish I would have adopted that in my sports career, and that would have helped me tremendously with my movement and just preventative. I didn't really have injuries as much per se, but I did have like sticking points and stiffness, and like I just didn't have that kind of athleticism towards the end of the career I should have.
Mentally,
you are always either growing or dying. And so if you are not stretching your capacity to learn, improve, educate yourself, then you're going backwards. And I think that still to this day, I always revisit this self-conversation. What am I doing, Adam, right now to improve my skills, to learn, to become more self-aware, to be a better husband, to be a better father? So frequent check-ins with yourself on what are you doing currently to improve yourself, I think is the way to stay on top of the mentality and mentally being healthy.
I think if I listened to myself, it would have been hire a coach, for lack of a better term, a life coach.
Yeah.
I think because I was always into reading, always into learning, but I think having a guide, a good guide, would have done me wonders for sure.
I agree. I would have wished I would have been exposed to that, back then too, to really have somebody in my corner, because I took a lot on myself, and like I definitely didn't have. I had a lot of confidence in myself, but I just felt like I was alone in that pursuit, and so to really, I guess have somebody to talk to about that would have helped a lot.
Imagine if we went back in time, right? But we had to convince the other 21. Like I had to go talk to Adam at 21.
You probably would have done better. I think I'd probably do better
if
listening.
You showed up to yourself?
Yeah. Showing up to myself, I probably wouldn't be able to convince
Really?
myself. Yeah, I think I'd probably have a better opportunity to listen to one of you guys.
I'd have to long play it for sure, knowing how hard-headed all of us are, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I know you liked that episode. If you did, check this one out. 30% body fat. For men, this is way too high. This is actually a bit high for women as well. So in today's episode, we're talking about how you can go from 30 to 10. What is 10% body fat? This is when you have a visible six-pack. Can you go from 30 to 10%? Yes, it's possible, but not if you guess along the way. So we're going to talk about how you can do that in today's episode.
Now, there's a huge range, right, of like body types.
Yes.
Some people can run a little bit heavier or a little bit higher body.